these are the games on Fox Friday college football. And I know ESPN will have some as well.
Yeah.
But these are the Fox games, which are the Big Ten and the Big 12, and then they'll have the Mountain West Championship game as well. But overall, there's some nice ones in here. The first one, Wildcats versus Wildcats, Arizona at Kansas State, should be a nice opener for Arizona and the Big. Like, welcome aboard. Here's a team at their place who likes bare knuckle brawls.
Yeah, are we going to air this segment on Sports Tonight on the local CW? Because I want to say, are we going to? Y'all think?
We gonna air it?
Probably not. Okay,
Yeah,
I don't know. Okay, well, shit, man, that's a great game right at the beginning of the season,
Yeah,
dude.
no.
Like, that is a hell of a game right at the beginning of the season. Arizona and Kansas State. Like, come on now, that might be, if Arizona's all they're cracked up to be, despite the coaching change. I mean, firepower-wise, Avery Johnson and Noah Fafita in a quarterback duel. Like, are you kidding me? That's going to be a lot of fun. So that's a big game, I think, because Arizona is one of those teams that's being mentioned in kind of that tier 2 of the contenders in the Big 12 this year. Mm-hmm. And Kansas State's in that tier 1. Honestly, it's them and Utah, really, that I think are the favorites. I'd say in that tier 2, you got like an Arizona State. Arizona. Definitely not Arizona State. In Arizona, I'd say they're kind of there by themselves, but then there's another wave that's like the UCFs, the Texas Techs, or Iowa State's obviously up there. Kansas is up there, so I'd even put Kansas, maybe Iowa State in that second tier. But yeah, that's a great game early in the season, so I like that one a lot. And I know with the Friday games there is some pushback some places because of the high school football, sentiment about keeping that night holy for high school football, basically. Mm-hmm. But there was a comment I came across from Greg Sankey where he was talking about, I saw where the Big 12's talking about putting more games on Friday nights and basically saying that that's not something they want to do. It's like, dude, not everybody has the luxury that you have with the SEC network and the demand for your product to be all over national television all the time. So honestly, what are teams supposed to do, especially with these bigger conferences? Like, you got to put the game somewhere. Mm-hmm. So I'm all for Friday nights. I don't think it'll be as disruptive to high school football as some believe it will be. And so, yeah, Arizona, K-State, right out of the gates, that is great. I will definitely be watching that if at all possible.
Yeah, and then while you guys are doing a high school football game, Smokey will be half attentive. I mean, he's always great at it, but
he'll be locked in on the high school game.
He'll be locked in on the high school game, but believe me, he'll know what's going on.
Oh, sure, yeah.
At Illinois, at Nebraska.
This one particular, yeah. I think he will be on Arizona, K-State too, but Nebraska.
These are the nights where he's, we get to halftime and he pulls it up and watches it, and he's like
cusses and another special teams error to complain about.
But yeah, a big showcase for Matt Rule and Dylan Raiola. I think early on in the season for people to kind of see what year 2 looks like under Matt Rule.
It's a Big Ten game. That's going to be important for both teams, especially kind of where they are in the pecking order of things. So yeah, Friday night at home, Memorial Stadium ought to be just going nuts for a Friday night game because those are always just a little bit different, right? So, yeah, I think that'll be a nice little contest out of the Big Ten.
And then you start to see they start cycling through some of the newbies. Mm-hmm. Washington at Rutgers, Michigan State at Oregon, which is right after, I believe, Michigan State plays Ohio State back-to-back in their schedule. So
have fun, Jonathan. I mean, there will be the element, though, of like at least it's year 1, Jonathan Smith brought over a really good quarterback.
Playing against Oregon, so who's
playing against
with?
Oregon, Ed Otson. Like, that's got some storyline to it, so that's cool.
Yeah. Northwestern at Maryland, Oregon at Purdue, so Oregon's second time through on Friday night. Rutgers is going to have another time through.
We got to stop here. Oregon at Purdue, the conference game. I mean, I know
so
it looks
stupid.
I know we could have said this with Washington Rutgers as well. Michigan State, Oregon, that looks like a bowl matchup or something. But yeah, Oregon at Purdue, the conference game is just, and then Washington at Rutgers. Is there a game farther apart?
Well, maybe Rutgers and USC.
Okay,
so I don't know what the difference is in travel, which is the one that's the very next week.
Which is right where we are, yeah.
Yeah, so
that might, Rutgers, they're going to be doing some traveling, but they also get the Washington game, so that works out.
The next week, Iowa at UCLA. Do you like points? Me neither. Watch that game. I don't know. I don't know what UCLA is really going to be like under Deshaun Foster and that coaching staff that happened differently. I think he'll be good. I just don't know when. There's a lot to that.
Right. He's just not a guy that I think a lot of us know all that much about yet. And so it's going to be a learning experience for him taking that gig, but he seems pretty well prepared for it. And there's a lot of really great things that have been said about him, but just in the big picture, I mean, UCLA is definitely the fourth of the four as far as just expectations and excitement level and all of that. Plus, they're undergoing a coaching change. So, yeah, they're a bit of a question mark just in general. But I think, it's just one of those situations you got to give it time, and we'll see how that works out for the Bruins and Deshaun Foster. Yeah,
UCLA back again the next week in the New Beast Bowl, the West Coasters.
That's a double whammy of back-to-back games there. That's going hell on wheels with that Iowa defense and then turning right around. Now, granted, we don't know how good Washington's going to be with Jed Fish in year number one. They're definitely – we got to remember they lost – that team last year does not exist this year. That Washington team is, completely different than what they were. But, yeah, that's a couple of Friday night games in a row, which is interesting.
All right, then Purdue and Michigan State make their second Friday night appearances each. And then wrapping up with what I think is going to be a really good Big 12 game. I think UCF, I'm buying big on UCF this year, making a large improvement given what they've added in the transfer portal, what their recruiting's been doing anyway, and the fact that the most accomplished coach in the Big 12 is probably right now Gus Malzahn. And Gus Malzahn, Kyle Whittingham, yeah, they're like right
Mike
there.
Mike Gundy, man, before Wet Blanket gets in the.
Well, yes, but Mike Gundy has never played, coached a national championship,
right.
Kind of a thing. So that's where I think Gus Malzahn has the trump card over everybody else. But yes, before everybody. But yes, I think he's the most. I know
what you're saying. He's seasoned as it gets, and most. He's got one of the better resumes of the coaches in the Big 12.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think by the time this one rolls around, you should have two teams probably playing, I would think, their best ball because of the coaches and the way that they'll gel together. And if it's Cam Rising and KJ Jefferson both healthy playing each other on November 29th, that should be a really, really good game. As a matter of fact, I would venture to say here, and I'm not knocking the Big 10 games, but the Big 12 games on either end of this, to me, are better games than almost any of the Big 10 games on there.
Well, for one, what stands out to me is just that there's not a ton of them.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of Big 12 games if you're worried about them just flooding. Now, granted, that's because Fox wants Big 10 games because they're going to have a bigger audience most likely, just bigger fan bases in general. But, no, I think the Big 12 games that you did get, starting and finishing basically with that, the Mountain West Championship game notwithstanding, that's all. I mean, that's it, right? That's just the first game and the last game of the regular season. Yeah, all the rest of it is Big 10. So, I think from an exposure standpoint, you don't necessarily love that. But then again, if you're opposed to playing on Fridays, well, hey, it works out well. But I do think as much of a pain as some coaches may find Fridays, I mean, having that prime real estate on Fox is a big deal. And you'd much rather, I think, have that than have 11 a.m. on ESPN Plus. And nobody really paying that much attention to you, save for your hardcores and your built-in fans already. But I mean, for the two games they got from the Big 12, yeah, those are definitely two of the better ones. They also, have both instances, one of the new PAC schools, so you get some of that West Coast flavor as well, even though both of them are on the road. But Arizona is, like I said, I think they're in that tier 3 of contenders, maybe even tier 2. And then K-State, I think, is obviously in that top tier. So is Utah. And I think UCF's in that I'd say 3 for right now, but the potential to be better than that if health is in their favor and everybody's maximized the way you think that they could be in Gus Malzahn's offense. Obviously, you've got to be much better on defense this year, but they've attacked the transfer portal. I like the moves that they've made. Offensively, their rushing game should be pretty nasty. I mean,
well, R.J. Harvey and Penny Boone
and KJ Jefferson. Yeah, I mean, they should be able to run the ball and get pretty physical. So yeah, I think that Utah UCF game, for all we know, that could be like a decider in who's going to the Big 12 championship game or what bowl game you're playing in at that point in the year if things go the way that some expect them to for both of those teams. So yeah, that's interesting to see. I mean, definitely. I don't know how much I paid attention to Friday night games before this. I mean, I paid attention, but I don't This just seems way more appealing to me and way more interesting, though, than in years past. I don't know about you. I don't recall this many weeks of a Friday night game where I'm like, damn, like that, I want to watch that game. Not all of them, but a good portion of all of them. I definitely am already looking forward to watching. So, yeah, Fox got themselves quite the lineup. And then, hey, Mountain West, no regular season Friday night games, but having that championship game will be a good spot of real estate for them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So, should be really good. And I can't. I'm very bullish on UCF this year. I think KJ Jefferson's a really good player. I think he's shown how good he can be over time. I think Arkansas has just been kind of a mess around him.
Yeah,
and he's had some injuries, no doubt. But I think that you put him in a situation like this with the weapons he'll have available, that'll be better and more consistent, and not so reliant on KJ, go save us.
Right.
I think that. And then, to be fair, Arkansas didn't really have him and Rocket Sanders in the lineup at the same time last year. And now they're both gone. Rocket Sanders is at South Carolina. But those things kind of derailed them. But
yeah, this. I understand there's the order of picks, and so you weren't going to have Michigan, Ohio State on Friday night. But I think for waiting your turn, Big Ten-wise, I already said they got two great Big 12 games. I don't know what the ratings are going to be. I, as a fan, don't care about the TV ratings, really. I just find them interesting more than anything else. I don't use those to, taunt others or make a case about why this league deserves to exist or not. I think that's just kind of ridiculous. But I do find them interesting when big numbers pop. I don't know what the biggest game on here will be, because some of these Big Ten schools just have such big fan bases automatically built in. But they got two really good Big 12 games, and I think they got some pretty – there's not a great Big Ten game on here, but the Michigan State, depending on kind of where they are versus Oregon, could be pretty interesting just with the built-in storylines there. And then, I guess a lot will just depend on kind of who steps up. But I think if you're Fox, you're pretty happy with this for a Friday night lineup. I think you did pretty well for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely did. And I know that ESPN will have some games too, as well on Friday nights. That's, I think, mostly ACC that they do on Fridays. I know I've missed a couple of FSU games over the years because a couple of them I didn't mind missing. I was watching a better one on Friday nights. But
yeah, we actually covered a pretty good high school team, so we saw some pretty fun games at times, and some of them better than what you got from the college product. That's for sure. I definitely have gotten home at 11:30 at night, and there's a game on, and I'm like, okay, I just watched something way better, but that's cool.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come